strongest moments are in this early mid-game fights.
Yeah, and you're going up against something like a Lee Sin, which just has that inherent mobility. If you guys aren't familiar, Lee Sin on mobile lets you safeguard literal air, so you can just go over the walls at any point. You don't need to go for a ward jump. And you're also noticing we are seeing through the player's point of view. So you're always going to see the team that we are currently spectating on the left side of your screen. And I'm also interested, granted, if we're going to actually see any kind of variations in control setup, because that's the one thing that I love about Wildrift is the fact that you can customize your control scheme so you can move buttons all over the place.
Yeah, that's true. We definitely, it could be quite a big difference. I would say that it comes down to both like settings that you might not really see depending on the champions that you're playing. Because there might be things like percent health targeting, whether it's percent health or absolute low health, right? So that could make a difference going into a couple of these matches. Otherwise, we're looking at a pretty standard start right now. We're seeing Trueshot just going to let the Mastery do his thing, drag us out into the mid lane. You know, again, very tanky, so this means that he's able to survive against the Zed. I don't think that the Zed actually has enough damage to burst the Gragas even after 5. So once he gets to his ultimate, I don't think he has the means to really force the Gragas out of lane.
And you see here, it's very simple. All you got to do is just, again, lay down what you wish for as far as your clear goes with that barrel. It's not using a whole lot of mana. It's a rather safe lane. Let's go ahead, though, and take a look down toward this ball lane. Of course, we have a Frozen Kiss on this Jhin going up against that Vayne lock-in that we saw as well coming out from Malaysia. And we actually see a bit of an invade coming up here, but you do see them going to rotate on over. DX not in a whole lot of safety themselves, and that Lee Sin's going to get taken down. First blood going on over to Team Malaysia.
Big risk coming in from Trueshot to look for the engage, to look for the invade against the Lee Sin, and that's something that you wouldn't really expect to see considering how strong Lee Sin is in the early levels. There's been a lot of focus around the invade meta, which is why Trueshot made that decision. But it's difficult when you have someone who has so much pressure against you. Even if it was just the Lee Sin versus the Mastery, I think that Lee Sin would have come out on top. So the fact that people came over to assist the Lee Sin is just a little bit added help, but I don't think it would have made too big of a difference.
So with that, that's going to be first blood going on over to Team Mystic, and looks like, you know, Thailand, maybe we're just seeing some of that for fun coming out here in that first game. Obviously, the Master Yi invade, maybe not the optimal situation to be in, but you can hear the team comms over on Mystic much louder than what we're hearing over on Thailand.
Yeah, passionate. They've got this, right? Playing the champions that represent the region.
Yes, you're very adamant that you have to play these champions or you get disowned, apparently, right, Brandon, and I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I might be in Canada, but I that's a big I'm not too sure right that. Also interested to see from solos, too, using that target aiming immediately off the bat. We didn't get to see that. That's another kill going on over to Team Mystic as DX gets caught out and this Lee Sin starting to run wild.
Yeah, making big impact. So this is kind of what we were concerned about moving into this, right? That little bit of disconnect that we're talking about. But the team does well in the early to mid game. They have pretty decent lane pressure. They have pretty decent management of waves. But this also means that the Master E doesn't really get that much support from the rest of the team if he wants to look for some other plays, because you're so focused on working in the lane and using the advantage that you have. Oh, this is interesting, right? If I'm not mistaken, Gragas is actually running Smite right now.
Yeah, I believe opting for that Smite, so you just have that second secure. Maybe there's also another question that we kind of had heading into the day is whether or not we were going to see Darius or even Draven getting picked up. Of course, one of the two new additions coming into Wildrift in the most recent patch, and so far, it has been abused a little bit here from the Garen. I know, Brandon, you had some thoughts that maybe Darius just wasn't as strong as people were hoping for on release.
Yeah, I think that Darius is definitely a little bit weaker than guys like Garen. It still has its purpose and its place, but overall, I would say that it just doesn't bring enough to the table that you would want to try and rush for this pick. I'd say that probably even something like a Malphite could have done really well against Garen here, and it helps the team out a lot because now you're able to really jump onto the Jhin, jump onto the Annie. You have a little bit more tankiness, a little bit more frontline. Darius has been pretty well tuned, I'd say, because he doesn't get that many tanky stats even after he levels up pretty high. So that's going to be a little bit problematic for them, considering they don't have much of a decent frontline.
You just see here a garden of traps being laid down by Frozen Kiss, trying to make sure they don't get caught out here by the Lee Sin. We actually saw the Lee Sin pathing up towards the top side of the map, and a lot of members looking for their first back here to get some item buys. Meanwhile, mid lane though, you said it, Grandin, that you would never expect the Zed to have enough damage to kill the Gragas. Well, guess what just happened?
My goodness, bot side also looking like it's going to be in a bit of trouble.
Oh, no.
Coming in from Vayne, flash away from the Jit. He might be a bit away from this. Actually running in now.
Yeah, you saw there, DX did come by and was able to provide some support. See a current call maybe thinking of being used here by Frozen Kiss. Wants to see maybe if they can steal away this Drake, but at the moment, both members feeling a little bit, cautious. Meanwhile, though, again, the Greg is getting caught out. That's going to be a nice flash body slam to get J-Raw back to safety, as that will not lead to the 4th death for the team. But DX now in a little bit of trouble themselves here on this Master Yi. As, again, checked over the wall, and just like that, ooh! Follows on over, and that's the 4th kill over to Team Mystic, and that's also going to be likely the first strike.
Yeah, really impressive showing coming in from Mystic right now. Having that additional pressure, being able to look for a number of these pickups has been so impressive. Now going for the Dragon, they translate a lot of the pressure down to their bot side. We were moving into this expecting it to be a little bit more for fun, right? For lack of a better word, right? But honestly, the level of mechanics and level of play here has been pretty impressive. These things have been thought out. They know what they're trying to go for. There's a deliberate strategy in play here.
Meanwhile, top lane's the battle of the Black Cleavers. There's both members just trying to shred each other down. That's just the spin to win. But one thing I did mention during our pre-show was whether or not we were going to see teams try and go for objectives, and already we saw that's a heavy engage coming out here from the Garen. Both are going to go ahead, laying down the slam, the dunk. In comes the Lee Sin though, and that's going to be able to save it on back. It's a 1-for-1. Now the 1v1 in between DX as well as the Lee Sin, and Fredo has the target available. That's a double kill for the Lee Sin, as Mystic now up 5 kills in total, 6-1.
Yeah, this is a bit of a snowball coming in. That's what you expect from a Lee Sin. This is what you expect from these kind of games where you have aggressive pickups. Bot side.
Oh man, Frozen getting some decent damage there, but not able to connect with the flourish. Was thinking about the current call, but instead opts away, as that's going to be the Vayne backing off here. And I guess that's kind of the one little, plus so far across the map for Thailand is the fact that they have not been able to give up. Almost able to find that 3rd shot. Frozen's going to be fine. Meanwhile, into the jungle, DX. Oh, you can already see a little bit of frustration starting to show there, as that's also the Rift Herald being taken by Team Mystic.
Onward.
Yeah, that's kind of what you expect, right? When you play Master Yi and you fall behind, you are a massive vulnerability that your team has to be concerned about, because now you have the Zed coming in that's able to kill you. You have the Lee Sin, who's definitely going to be able to kill you, right? Even in the most tanky Master Yi build, the Lee Sin will still be able to burst you just by nature of the spells that you have and the nature of the spells that Lee Sin has. The kick totally disables you. You're not able to do anything. You can't do anything with the QSS as well, because QSS doesn't stop the knock-up effect. So now you just have to kind of sit there and take it. And that's not a good thing for any Master Yi player. Any Master Yi player worth his salt knows that to come in and find the kills, to get the resets, find time to auto-attack. The fact that they haven't been able to do so, they haven't been able to go for even in skirmishes, it's always been a quick burst fight where Trueshot has been on the receiving end, they're losing HP, they're taking a ton of damage. Their one point of solace right now is probably the fact that Frozen is pretty far ahead, is doing very well in lane.
Yeah, doing well in lane so far, but like you mentioned, will that be enough as they go ahead and they find themselves a Lee Sin? But meanwhile, in comes that Zed. They are able to take down the Lee Sin, but it is a trade 1-for-1. Though they do find the shutdown going on over to the Annie, and maybe find a Vayne in the jungle here, but in comes that Sona as well. A decent amount of damage going to come out from Frozen Kiss, but it looks like that should be it as the flashes burn just to get to safety.
Looked a little bit dangerous for the Sona and for the Vayne for a second there. But things worked out pretty well in the end. Has to be careful here. Frozen in quite a difficult position, losing a lot of health. If Zed jumps into the Living Shadow, could just look for the kill. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Just going to be able to make a quick recall. Start picking up a couple of items. So we're about 9.5 minutes into the game. This is the point where you're starting to see a 1 or 2 items. The fact that she went for Yos first is a really interesting showing for me. Right? Additional mobility, bonus lethality, tons of damage. Sets up really well with the Jin build, but it's also the fact that because the Malaysian side doesn't really have a dedicated tank, doesn't really have something to work with.
Wow. That's aggressive, but you already see that Zhonya's getting rushed immediately off the bat here. And that's pretty frustrating to deal with now for Mystic, at least when they take a look toward Frozen Kiss. Meanwhile, DX Racer trying to get aggressive as they are able to avoid that stun coming out from the Tibbers. And looks like Mystic are able to walk away with no casualties.
Yeah, but Mystic is able to at least take away a couple of summoner spells from Trueshot. So yeah, they may not have lost any lives, they may not have gained any kills, but they were able to take away a couple of summoner spells, which should set them up moving forward for this. If DC doesn't get killed off, Master E jumping in on the kick.
Kick gets them back to safety. Meanwhile, you also saw the crescendo coming out, but no, actually, that Kern call was able to land on the fourth blow, and they're actually able to take down the Lee Sin. DX going down low themselves. Penja looking for the possible play, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. In comes that death mark as well over onto Frozen Kiss. Frozen Kiss going down low. Not able to finish off the kill, though, as they continue to trade back and forth here. It looks like that will be all, but it looks like Trueshot find themselves 2 kills in total for the price of 1.
Still a good setup for them. Now, we talked a little bit about how Frozen Kiss is really now that main focus, that priority for a Trueshot. Get her to a point where she can carry the game, has enough damage to do so. At the same time, Garen doing pretty well in lane, start picking up a couple of items, start applying pressure into a side lane. Relieve a little bit of pressure on the Jin, because once the Z has become that split pushing menace, then honestly, I think that Garen's the only one on the side of Trueshot that's able to deal with him.
You saw there, looked for another play in the mid lane from the Annie here on Trueshot, but just not able to connect there. Also see now, Frozen Kiss finishing off the Guardian Angel, so that's a nice pickup. Meanwhile, top lane, you did mention that, Garen. Unfortunately, Boss gonna get taken down here, as that's a rampage now online here for the Zed of Mystic.
Okay, so it kind of played out the way we talked about, right? Zed goes up to deal with Garen, but they bring in the Lee Sin too. Relieve some pressure from Trueshot, so from Frozen Kiss, so she gets the farm a little bit, right? But how much they get off of this is really going to make all the difference. The fact that they at least get Dragon means, it's not always long.
You know what? Like we mentioned, objectives, they become crucial here in Wildrift for helping close out games. So if you're able to delay that, and we're not seeing massive pressure except up on that top side of the map here for Mystic, if they're only able to get that top lane pressure but not actually crack open the base, that gives time for Trueshot to come back online and get themselves back into this game.
And you can start to see a couple of the itemization options coming through. Frozen Kiss opts for the Hourglass to give herself a little bit of stasis. Oh, the Frozen Kiss!
Oh no! In comes the Kern call, though. Finds one. Can they find the other? Unfortunately, the shots are not going to connect as the Sona is out to safety. But meanwhile, DX got caught out again on that Master Yi. So that's going to be jungle down here for Trueshot for the next 30 seconds.
Don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. Baron isn't much of a threat or an objective to be picked up right now. We can start to see a little bit of the damage from the Gragas coming through. So that's something for them to be concerned over.
Little bit to be concerned, but you did see there, at least it was considering going for the play. But this is starting to see a little bit of what I see during my solo queue games during Wildrift Granted, where all of my team just kind of groups up in mid lane and just kind of hopes that if they win a fight there, they're going to be able to just kind of push down any objectives. But as long as that first tier tower's up, there's not really anything of concern for Mystic to worry about.
I mean, Mystic has a pretty good set to begin with, right? Their team composition was really good. They had a pretty, I would say, well-formulated plan. They brought in Lee Sin to go aggressive, to get some decent amount of pressure down to the bot side. They were able to translate into a couple of quick kills. The fact that they have the Zed into the mid lane who's able to execute plays the way he has been. All this kind of goes to show that Mystic has planned out a decent amount. So they don't really have all too much to worry about right now. They just have to focus on pushing the lead that they do have, look for the Baron window when it comes up. I would say that Baron isn't too difficult to pick up for the composition that they're working with, especially with the Vayne and all. So they just want to try and look for that window when they can.
Well, it's a little aggressive there. You have the crescendo coming out. Solo's actually tumbling forward, but that is not where you want to be. Kern Call is almost primed there by Frozen Kiss, but decides against it. And still, with that Guardian Angel, nothing to really worry about as far as whether or not Mystic is going to be able to take down this Jhin later on.
Double defensive item pickup, so now we have the Guardian Angel and we have the Hourglass from the Jhin. Very defensive decision. Going for these items means that the Zed has become quite a threat, but it also means that while she's in stasis, Frozen Kiss isn't going to be able to output damage, and for a team that heavily requires her to put out the damage, it could be a little bit counterintuitive. Yes, you need survivability to be able to put out damage, but you also need a team to still be alive by the time you come out of your stasis.
We'll see here. Lee Sin looking for a possible play. This game has kind of just slowed down, though, and that's beneficial here for Team Trueshot, because obviously, like we mentioned, Frozen Kiss starting to scale up. The Master Yi, as long as you keep on farming away, at some point you're going to hit full build, and that itself is a nuisance. We do see the Zed looking for the split push, and that's actually just going to be him trying to actually find themselves back over to safety. Has that Shadow still, going to wait for it, but still DX able to get that damage. We mentioned this Lee Sin not going to be able to do a whole lot when this Master Yi is starting to come online. The shutdown, though, goes on over to the Annie.
Yeah, definitely. Master Yi has, I wouldn't say come online, but at least come to a point where it has a decent amount of pressure, has some opportunity to kill the opponents where necessary. The crescendos are really just acting as deterrent for the enemy team right now. So far, hasn't really seen too much of a massive fight, but with this mid lane pickup, we might see a bit of gauge come through.
And you see that? Master Yi can start shredding down towers pretty fast here. Still a bit of aggression coming in. A nice kickback coming out from the Lee Sin, but is going to get rooted up. A nice barrel, though. Going to catch out the Sona, meanwhile, on the other side of the screen. And that will be a dead port as the Gragas is able to pick up the kill. And guess what just spawned up? It's Elder Drake is on the map here. If they're able to get this Lee Sin to have to go back to base, that could be the objective here for Thailand.
Yeah, but remember that Lee Sin has a lot of mobility, so should be able to make his way back over to the Dragon quickly enough. I think it's more important that they try to establish a little bit of control around the jungle right now. We see a couple of wards, but that isn't all too much, and you really have to be concerned when you have a Zed on the enemy team, when you have a Soda on the enemy team. At any point, you could get bursted out. Frozen Kiss still hasn't had her GA procced at any point yet, so this defensive item has worked out pretty well in a sense, but at the same time, it also means that there hasn't been all that much impact.
Ooh! Meanwhile, though, Jay gonna get taken down as the Zed is able to find another victim, but like you mentioned, Frozen Kiss, she's able to stay onto the map, but in comes that Lee Sin, able to connect there with the Q. DX going down low, can they finish off the Lee Sin? Is now Mystic, able to find themselves an opening, and now Solo's gonna come back around the corner. Frozen able to get back to safety with the Master Yi, but now this poor Garen is just left to the wolves at this point, as Solo gonna slowly hunt them down, and there you go, as a killing spree for the Vayne. And Frozen Kiss, she's gotta be a little bit careful here. Is gonna be able to back off to safety, though, underneath that third tier tower.
Tries to force for the Dragon, but like we mentioned, they have a lot of mobility, they can get over to the Dragon quickly, and so they started it up. The Lee Sin joins back into the fight, they stall for enough time, and that's all they needed to do. Now they come in, they're gonna pick up this Dragon, they're gonna be able to pick up the Elder, it's gonna give them a ton of damage. They can rotate over to the Baron and start threatening and positioning for the Baron. This is textbook setup, and honestly working so well for this team.
Oh! And DX comes around the corner, just wanted to say hello. And Mystic just slays them in the river just like that. So that's now Infernal Elder online here for Team Mystic, and possibly looking toward a setup of this Baron.
Well, when the enemy jungler is gone, what do? You go for objectives, and Baron is just the next obvious pickup. Once you have this, a lot of the damage available over onto the side of Mystic becomes invalidated. They don't really have that much anymore.
Oh my lord, you saw that damage though that just came out, and in comes the Lee Sin over the wall. Can they actually find the kick? There it is, it's actually gonna take down one! Almost gets to safety, doesn't even pop the GA, and another safeguard will get them out of there, so it's a trade 1-for-1. Frozen Kiss though, no Zonias available for the next minute or so. And man, it's looking like it's getting close here for Trueshot. If they lose more than one member during a skirmish, it could be easily a base being taken down.
Yeah, the fact that the mid lane has already lost a decent amount of health on that tier 2 turret means that there is going to be a bit of potential for a heavy siege once Baron is picked up. Thankfully, I would say that they do still have the means to defend the Nexus, but again, a lot of the damage that they have, a lot of the wave clear that TH side has, that Trueshot has, is a little bit dependent on magic damage. So once the Baron is picked up, a lot of the minions won't be as easy to clear out anymore, and it's going to come down to being out of position and being far ahead in the middle of the wave for guys like Garen to move to try and clear the wave.
Well, this was kind of going to be our question, was whether or not we were going to see teams actually utilize some of these objectives once they've been able to take them down. We still have not seen an attempt to go on for the Baron just yet, and that kind of looks like you mentioned, to be the current gatekeeper for this match. You see, all the GAs are available for Mystic. They're ready to go. They're ready for a fight. But at the moment, it's just them playing calm, it seems, and not looking to take any risks.
I mean, taking it slow, taking it easy for now. You don't want to have to go make a decision that you're going to end up regretting, because that's kind of the situation that Trueshot was in.
Oh, no.
Let's fight first, though.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Greg is going to get caught out. That's a big disruptor. That's also DX using their ult already, and now DX able to go into the Alpha Strike, tries to get himself back over to safety. DX ticking low, able to survive, but meanwhile the Annie gets taken down, and only 3 members alive here for Trueshot, with Mystic on the top side of the map aiming for the Baron.
Like we said, Trueshot, they went for the Elder Dragon earlier on. That was their big mistake. That was the point where, when we were looking at Trueshot, they looked like they could get back into the game. Because they went for that dragon, then suddenly they lost the big fight. They lost the Elder Dragon buff. Mystic had it. They were able to continue to push their advantage. And now they take their time. They look for a window where they're able to kill off the Gragas, kill off the Annie, moving over to the Baron after that. Right, so it's a step-by-step process. You can't skip steps here. You have to open up the opportunity. You have to find some way before you go for it. Look at this. Stab onto the Lee Sin.
Oh my goodness!
Easy crit.
You just saw their big crit coming out from Solos. And now the base is going to be a bit subset to a little bit of a push here from these Baroned up minions. We'll see whether or not Trueshot can try and hold this. But meanwhile, tower's gonna go down. We're gonna start seeing that push. You start seeing those crits coming through, and it's gonna be really hard to kill this Vayne.
I'm gonna say, Opal, it looks like we might be wrong with our pick'ems for the very first match. But I'm happy with this outcome.
Yeah, Malaysia themselves, they did mention, Team Mystic, while we were having that little bit of that pre-interview, that, hey, we've been able to do some practice. We're a bit confident. And Thailand, well, it seems like it might hold true to what we maybe expected after talking to them, where, they're just going to play these games out, see what works, see what doesn't work. It's not about taking home the victory today, but instead looking forward to tomorrow.
Exactly. And that is a little bit of an argument to be made about not showing off any of the strategies today, because you're going to have to do so tomorrow anyway, right?
Oh, maybe too aggressive here coming out as the Zed goes down underneath the tower, but the tower is going to get taken down, and now, unfortunately, Jay, in the middle of 4 members, tries to go for the flash. It's not going to happen, and first game of the day, it's going to be Team Mystic taking home the victory.
Solid win coming in from Mystic. They had quite a bit of confidence, I would say, going into this first match. They had their team captain, and he might have been a little bit apprehensive to take up that title, but I would say that the calls being made by the team, the decisions that they had were very well executed. So this is a team that is definitely worth looking out for.
And there you go. So like we mentioned, Mystic going to be our first victors when it comes to the Pentaboom showdown here in Southeast Asia. And yeah, me and Grandin, proven wrong immediately. I think we also had some other members of our casting staff also proven wrong. So kind of begs the question now, okay, maybe teams got to be a little bit more afraid of Mystic coming out the gates here pretty strong in game 1.
Yeah, it's a bit of a concern for some of these other teams, because now Mystic is a big threat that you're going to have to deal with. Moving into the second day, they look like they have pretty solid lineup, but at the same time, these champions that they're going for are probably going to be heavily contested going into the next sets anyway. So I'm not all too concerned, because you're probably going to see the Lee Sin pick up from other guys anyway. You're probably going to see the Zed, the Gragas. All these things are going to be picked up. A lot of the champions that we've already seen in this first match are likely going to be repeated over and over again. So if they are a one-trick, I'm not too concerned. But if they have a big champion pool, then yeah, definitely a big threat for these other teams.
And you guys can see at the bottom of the screen that QR code. We still have another match coming up. Of course, that's going to be between Team Starcall and Team Keeper. You guys can vote on which team you think is going to be taking home the victory. Unfortunately, you know, fan vote was off by about 4%. They gave it to Thailand. Maybe they can be with us, and maybe we can try and get the right victor into that next game. But of course, focusing back on to game one, that kind of became the question. We saw Master Yi that was not able to really come online. Unfortunately, DX was getting caught out a couple times early on, and that put that Master Yi behind. There were hints that it was going to look good, but we can take a look back at some of these highlights from our game. Or maybe we're not seeing the highlights. Or we're not seeing our highlights. Okay, I just saw Big Branded on my screen and I was a little bit concerned. It's okay. We'll take a look at the highlights afterwards pretty shortly. Oh, you're a highlight for this cast. There we go. We're going to take a look back here from some of the player POVs. But yeah, that early game just wasn't really going in the favor of Trueshot, and even when they were getting close, you see here, it just turns into a 1-for-1. Actually, it was a 2-for-1 because then Fredo came in and just stole another kill and took down DX again.
A bit of a concern.
Unfortunately, there.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a concern going in for Trueshot, right? Because judging from the way that they drafted their pickup, I would say that arguably Trueshot had the better roster. They had better synergy between the champion pickups, right? You had Gragas that could act as a front line, at the same time do a decent amount of damage. You had Jin, which had good utility. I think that the main issue that they just had was the fact that they went for the Master E. I understand wanting to have a hyper carry potentially be the one to act as a boost in case the Jin isn't able to pop off. But, you know, these kind of things probably could be worked out on. You could probably look for something else, because when you opt for something that's so focused on damage and kind of ignores utility, you kind of see this issue where now you have to deal with a little bit of extra dead weight. Because in the early game when Master E fell behind, wasn't able to do all that much, wasn't able to translate it into additional kills. In fact, got caught out a number of times in the early game. So hopefully able to see a little bit of a switch out. I think the rest of the composition looked fine. Just want to see the Master E switched out for something else.
Yeah, unfortunately there for DX, there's not a whole lot of ways getting back into the game because, again, like we mentioned, you could say Master E is a pretty binary champion. You're going pretty simple. You go in with Alpha Strike, you hope to get some crits in, and hopefully you're getting some kills. Just didn't go their favor, at least here in game one. Also to note there, like, Lee Sin was absolutely disgusting during this game in some points. So big carry coming out there from the team, and very confident C as we take a look toward our post-game stats. And yeah, overall, this is pretty much what we expected, but you see massive gold leads across the board.
Yeah, it's a huge problem when your jungler falls behind heavily the other jungler, especially for Lee Sin, especially for Master E, who needs items to get to a point of power. The build choice that the Master E had too is a little bit suspect for me, because it doesn't really do very well and match very well against the enemy team. Whereas you look on the side of Mystic, a lot of it is more customized towards what they were dealing with at that point. So might have to reconsider the itemization for the Master E as well if they want to choose to continue for this pick. Otherwise, I think it was honestly pretty okay from the Thailand side. It's not the most beautiful loss, but they have tomorrow to prepare for as well.
Yeah, we still get to see more of these games today, of course. This is, of course, the first game. Maybe it's a little bit of warm-up needing to come out from Trueshot, but we'll take a look on over toward our damage numbers over the course of the game. And I give it over there to Frozen Kiss. Absolute monster when it came to her Jin performance with 35,000 damage. But like you mentioned, DX, fortunately, that Master Yi, it doesn't feel good when you're only hitting that 6.7 thousand damage chart. Meanwhile, though, on their side, Solo's big damage totals coming out. Zed putting out big damage over on the side of Team Mystic.
I mean, if teams are looking for some advice, Shyvana is a pretty good pickup. He has a lot of tankiness, decent amount of damage. If you look at the gold grab, it was a team and it was Mystic from start to finish.
That's kind of the thing here I think Mystic kind of has to take away, is there is the opportunity that they could have maybe ended this game a little bit sooner, but of course able to at least close it out around that 23-minute mark. That's still a pretty late game in terms of Wildrift. Usually you see games when they're kind of this one-sided ending around 15 minutes. So yes, small little takeaways heading into your next matches, and